17th, 2019. The time is 7:35 p.m. The regular scheduled meeting of the Greensburg Planning Commission is called to order. To comply with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the city requests that participants in this meeting complete a voluntary anonymous survey that is available on the table in the back of the room. And at this time, I'd like all participants in this meeting to silence any electronic devices. And we'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
John, will you please call roll?
Roy?
Present.
Jamie? Steve?
Present.
Kevin?
Present.
Tom?
Present.
Mark? Phil?
Present.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is approved minutes from July and August. I was looking through them real quick, and we approved the July minutes last month. With the, when we approved those, we changed, the meeting was adjourned by Jane instead of me, and that's how the corrected minutes are. So it looks like those are from last month. So if everyone take a few minutes to look through the minutes from the August 20th meeting. After review of minutes, do they have any additions or corrections to the minutes? Having heard none, make a motion to approve minutes as presented.
So moved.
I have a motion by Roy, have a second?
Second.
Second by Phil. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Having heard none, motion's passed as submitted. Minutes, I should say. New business. ONRA, ONRA LLC is here. Two items for them. First on the agenda, it's not here, but we will look at a split of the current property from one parcel to two parcels.
Good evening. I just handed out a new sheet, and on the proposed site, it says proposed site legal description. You'll see that there is 3 parcels. The first parcel will have a separate facility building on it. The second parcel will have another facility. The third parcel is right-of-way being dedicated to the city. Because right now the meets and bounds survey goes all the way to the center of the street on Freeland Road. So they are giving us 45 feet of additional right-of-way. So first of all, I'd like to propose a replat of this parcel into, really it would only be 2 because they're dedicating right-of-way to us. And then from there on with the site plan.
Any of the board members have any questions, Kathy? Having heard none, is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak to replat? Having heard none, second, try for members, any questions from the line? Having heard none, I'd accept the motion to replat this parcel into the 3 parcels.
I'll make the motion.
Steve
I'll second
made-
it.
Steve made it, Roy seconded. John, please call roll.
Roy?
Yes.
Jamie? Steve?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next on the agenda is the new site plan.
And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bill Niemeyer, the attorney for ONRA.
you. My name is Bill Niemeyer. I represent ONRA LLC. With me this evening are Don Tharp and Lily Tharp with ONRA LLC, as well as Trent Baxter. He's our engineer with Versatile Construction Group. And what we are proposing, we've handed out there two different diagrams. The first, without the structures, is probably more appropriate for the parcel split that was just approved, and thank you, by the way, for that. The second diagram shows the location of two proposed restaurant buildings, where the parking will be located, the drive lanes. We have the properties pretty well laid out. There will be cross parking, cross access, and cross drainage easements between both parcels. You know, I can't stand here and say with any certainty, but I can represent this evening that our business model is when we buy a property, we develop it, and we generally hold it long-term. Now, heaven forbid if somebody came and offered us 10 times what we think it's worth, we're gonna sell it. But I can represent that our model is to typically own long-term what we buy and we develop. So we're going to be taking down the existing Waffle House property, make some internal improvements, put up two brand-new, beautiful restaurant facilities, which we think in that corridor will be a nice complement to the neighborhood. Obviously, the zoning, it certainly lends itself to commercial uses, and that's what it's always been, and that's what we will continue to use it as. So our official request, or formal request, is for approval of the site plan as presented, but also that be contingent upon the final approval by the city engineer, and certainly we recognize that. And I would be happy to answer any questions. We did go through the technical review process, answered all of those questions and concerns, made some adjustments as needed, and so we believe that at this time, we are ready for site plan approval. And I do have Trent Baxter who can answer any technical questions.
And just for point of clarification, I believe the approval that you mentioned to the city engineer is for the stormwater control plan.
That is correct.
And just for additional information for the members, when this originally started, I think it was gonna be one building with less green space than what they have here. And their stormwater control plan that was submitted for that design was approved by Ron. And they had to go back and modify it for taking the building from one building to two buildings. But like I said, this one does have more green space than the previous design had.
And, you know, I apologize. I meant to say the very first thing I said this evening is that I apologize that this matter has been continued twice. We're here now on the third time, but I do believe that the third time is the charm. But, you know, that was because we had different tenant mixes, different layouts, but now we're good to go. But I do apologize that it's taken us 3 times to be on the agenda before we actually got here.
Thank you. Board members have any questions?
Do we have any idea on the second? I know the one proposal business is a Starbucks, the other one just says restaurant. Is there any particular restaurant that you're looking at, or it's still up in the air?
I would be happy to answer that question after the meeting off the public record.
Okay, I understand.
Any other questions from the board? Does anyone from the audience wish to speak to this petition?
Thank you.
Having heard none, I accept the motion to approve the site plan contingent on city engineer approving the final stormwater control plan.
So moved.
Motion moved by Roy, any second?
Second.
Second by Tom. John, please call roll.
Troy,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Phil.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, water plant rezone application.
regarding the wastewater, sorry, the water plant. When a new survey was being drawn up, it was discovered that the zoning of the water plant is split in half. So we have the existing, if you're looking at this map here, or the map on the screen, the old water plant per se is zoned industrial, and the current groundwater plant, along with the new properties which was purchased for the construction of the new plant, is all zoned R2. Under R2 zoning, municipality buildings are allowed as a permitted exception. So what I'm proposing is that we rezone the area that's I1 plus the areas that were closed, such as the streets, alleyways, etc., in the R2 area to be rezoned as R2 with a permitted exception. The reason being is because I1 does not permit municipality buildings.
The survey's completely done,
The
correct?
survey is completely done.
Any board members have any questions of Kathy? Having heard that, does anyone from the audience wish to speak to this petition? Having heard nothing, I accept the motion to approve the rezoning of the I-1 and the streets that were encompassed in this new survey to R2. With this, with the permitted exception. Made by Steve, I have a second. Roy seconds. John, please call roll.
Roy,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Phil.
Yes.
From here, this moves on to the city council for approval.
Any other businesses? Okay, then next we have the zoning ordinance, sign ordinance, and residential zoning, lot sizes and setbacks. Just Kathy said that attachment, which is included in this packet, some markups.
I apologize, our copier, I tried to do mixed size paper and it kind of did its own little thing with reducing and not knowing what mixed sized. So I do have an additional copy if someone really, if you need an extra copy. But in your binder is sections of the ordinance, which I would like to make changes in. The Board of Zoning Appeals recommended last month that we make some changes to the sign ordinance and then also to the R district for setback and lot size. If you go under the commercial zoning, under B1, B2, B3, and I1, it all states that anytime you get a sign permit, you must get a variance through the Board of Zoning Appeals. I did not know that existed, so I apologize. And so therefore, I've been giving them sign permits if they ask for a wall or a pole sign. Anything else, then they would have to go before the board. So, and meaning, if you wanted wall signs for your whole building, like Arby's a couple months ago, Arby's is doing a major overhaul, if you haven't noticed. And they requested new signage on all 4 elevations of the building. Well, our ordinance reads that you can only have 1 wall sign per elevation and 1 pole sign. Any others, you would have to go before the Board of Zoning Appeals and get a variance to do so. Also, in our sign ordinance, it states if you have a multi-use facility like Walmart, which has multi-tenants and outlots, that they are allowed to have more than 1 sign, which makes sense. However, only in the multi-tenant area does it mention setbacks for pole signs. So any other pole sign, for example, like I'm going to use the schools, there's not really a setback that mentions anything on how far a sign has to be off a property line. All it mentions that it cannot be in the visual clearance area of a intersection or a driveway. So I think we need to tweak it a little bit, not, per se a lot, it may need an overhaul because we have 20,000 definitions. Half of the definitions aren't even mentioned in the ordinance, but that's another day. But I think we need to, number one, add setbacks for signage, just like pole signs, ground signs, any type of high-rise sign or billboards. And then for wall signage, I think they should be allowed a certain amount of square footage, not just permitted on one side, but all elevation sides, as long as they don't exceed that square footage. And it goes by linear feet of the building. So if a building is 20 feet long and there's a formula that you use, as long as they don't go over that square footage, I don't see where it's a big deal really, because for the most part it was already there in most cases. So AutoZone, for example, was wanting to, they have a new design out and they were going to have to get a variance, but chose not to change all their signage because they didn't want to have to deal with getting a variance. So, and as Roy and Steve both can tell you, here of recent we've had a lot of variances come before the board for signage. On the other aspect of the R district, a lot of the older areas, the lot sizes are 40 feet in width. A few years ago, when the ordinance was revamped back in 2000, it was decided to make the lots wider due because people were building bigger houses. But what that did to the older lots is anytime if there was a fire or if there was an old vacant lot, then now those people had to come before the board to get a variance for minimum lot size, or if they wanted to build a garage on a 40-foot lot, an accessory building, they'd have to get a variance because, again, the setback for a 40-foot lot to build a garage on is 10 feet on the sides. When to build a dwelling in an R2 district, the setbacks for a home is 6 feet, but yet we're making a garage have 10 feet. So it's kind of an overkill. If they went any closer than 3 feet, you have to have a firewall anyway, according to the Indiana residential code. If you go closer than 2 feet, then you have to have the firewall, plus the overhang has to have some security as well. So, I mean, code's going to enforce part of it, but common sense to me to reduce it back to 5 to give these people a break from having to always come to the board to get a variance seems a little overkill. So somehow I'd like to tweak that area to where, I don't know, the grandfather clause, so to speak, is gone, but, exempt the older, I don't know how, if it's a 40-foot lot, then, whether we have different setbacks and square footage sizes for a 40-foot lot, or just take it back to all the lots have to be 40 feet, or again, have a separate section for that area.
One time, last time I think we talked, was at the last meeting, we considered putting this up to be together to review both of these, to bring recommendation back to the commission.
That's still, I think that's still doable. And the other question I had was, I noticed that there was a agricultural district, established, and really municipalities don't have any. There's not even one within the city limits, so I don't know why there was one developed. Does anyone recall why that was put into place a few years ago?
is High Point, is that, they're not the same? I don't know.
Because it allows quite a bit. I mean, in the county, you can't have a dwelling within an A1 district, but here you can have, as long as it's a permitted exception, you can have quite a bit.
Is
And
High
an
Point in
A1.
the city?
No,
I didn't think so, but it's been going on, so I was asked.
About home,
sorry.
it's on,
It's commercial, but it's closed at the present time.
Okay.
The golf course and this city park are zone conservatory, I believe. Or conservation, what is it? I can't remember what it's called, conservation.
With that same subcommittee, we could do that also. I guess at this point, I'm asking if anyone on this board would like to be a participant in that subcommittee. I would volunteer.
I'll volunteer.
So Steve and Roy.
And then I'll nominate Ron and myself.
Thanks, Ron.
He actually had his hand up, I saw him shake.
Yeah, he was saying he'd do it, I could tell from here.
So, we get, some meetings set up, we do that. We could attempt to have something like next month. Do we have anything on the agenda for next month?
Maybe.
No, I see at least after the committee's meeting.
I have a possible split, so again.
Alright,
Oh, we have a possible
the other business
vacation too,
for
Kathy.
board members.
Kathy, we have a possible vacation. Street vacation,
Street vacation?
possible. Oh, no, that didn't come through here, I'm sorry.
That's through city council.
Comes through the traffic committee, never mind, my bad.
Never mind him. He's a peanut gallery. That's all.
Alright, thank you much. If, no other business, we're gonna take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.